Hello and welcome to another random chess puzzles video. So I've slowly been increasing the difficulty on these. These are about 1150 rated up to 1650, and I'll try and do 10 problems that you can follow along with here, and pause at any time if you need to think. Alright, so we just had a capture here by this white pawn. And it's black's turn to move. What can we do here? Now, usually when you have tactics in a game or you're solving puzzles, you want to look for checks first. So, they can capture here and check our king, but what can we do in the meantime? Our queen could possibly check. Other than that, that looks about the only piece that can deliver a check. And of course we don't want to go here or the pawn will capture us, but maybe we can go this way. Now remember, when a king is in check, there are three options: capture the attacker, block the attacker, or run with the king. So if we go here, queen to h4 check, can't be captured. They could block with this pawn. Now, we could possibly capture this pawn, and then if they capture our knight, we'll capture their rook. But let's take a look at material. It looks like we're already behind by a knight. So we have 6 pawns versus their 6 pawns, and they may have captured a knight here because now we're just down by a knight. So if we give up another knight for a pawn and a rook, it'll be about even. So other than that, if you can't go after the king, you can look for unprotected pieces like this knight. Maybe we could try and go after that, but I don't know. Or we go after the queen with our rook. I'm still thinking about this move. Queen to h4, pawn blocks, we capture. Then if they capture our knight, we capture the rook. This knight will be under attack. The king could try and move, to protect. Then we could check. Maybe send the king running, and we also have this option. If the king moves over here, we could capture this pawn with a discovered check by the rook. So this looks pretty good. And, when you're solving puzzles like this, try and do as much as you can in your head, because in a game, you have to calculate it all out in your head. You can't take moves back or, get a second chance. Once you start into a, tactical combination, especially if you're giving up material, there may be no turning back. So queen to h4, pawn blocks, we capture with the knight. They don't have to capture here though. But I don't know, if the king moves here, we can capture again. It just looks like we're harassing the king. So I'm going to go with this move. Okay, and they right away... oh, now this is something I hadn't anticipated. But it looks like, we can go here, forking the knight and the king, although it's protected by the queen. And if the king moves, but then we still have the option to pick this off perhaps. So that looks to be the way to go. And sometimes you have to rely, oh, well, now we can pick off this rook. But do we have anything better? So when you think you see a good move, it's a lot of times a good idea to look for a better one, but it looks like we should just capture that with check. And then if they capture with the queen, well, next we can pick off this pawn, and we have a pin on this knight. All right, let's move on to the next one. That was 1300 rating. We'll keep this moving along if I want to complete 10 puzzles here. Okay, what was this? A capture by the rook, and I didn't see what was up there. So now, what can we do? Okay. Well, look for checks. Obviously, this queen can go here, but it may be captured. It could go here. The king could capture. But then we can follow up. So I should have warned you, pause if you need more time to think. But it looks like the queen is the move to make. But what do we do with this queen? We don't want to go here. We'll just be captured. But we could go here and sacrifice the queen. The king would be forced to capture. And then we could check with the rook. And the only way to slow that down is to block with the queen. And this pawn would prevent an escape. So we'll go there, check, and then we have a mate. So hopefully you found that one rated 1580. Sometimes queen sacrifices are hard to see. All right, on to the next problem. So now our queen had just checked the king, and the king runs. So once again, remember, when a king is in check, there are three options: capture the attacker, block, or run. Now, because they were side by side, you can't block. So there's no way to capture the queen, so the king runs. But how do we follow up an attack here? Are there any checks possible? So, pause if you really want to think more about this. But it looks like, we have the opportunity of moving this pawn with a discovered check. And that would force the king to move here. But then what do we do? Then we have to check again with our queen, perhaps. So this may be the way to go. If we move the pawn to b4, a discovered bishop check, the only place the king can run to is here. Then we could check again with the queen. If the king goes here, we deliver a mate, being backed up by our bishop. If they go here, again, that would be a mate. So that's the move. b4, check, and then we deliver a mate here. All right, well, I hope you found that one. Moving on to the next one, we just had the king capture. I believe that was a pawn. So white is behind in material. These two rooks are hovering around our king, and our king's trapped on the edge of the board, but this bishop's doing a good job of stopping the rooks from checking here. What can we do? All right. Well, I think I found this one. Hopefully you found it as well. If you need more time, just pause the video. If not, let's take a look at the checks first. Okay, we don't want to capture with the rook, capture the pawn here and check. The king can just capture us. So that leaves the only other piece, the bishop. Now, how can we check? Well, bishop to f7 check, forcing the king forward because there's no way to capture or block, so the king has to run, and then we can capture the pawn with check and mate. All right, check and mate here. All right, on to the next one, problem number 5. The rook has just moved attacking our queen, so what can we do here? We probably should move this queen out of the line of fire unless there's a check that leads to a winning attack. So, I don't know. The only check I see is the queen backing up here, but then the rook will just capture the queen. So maybe we have to go after material in this instance. So if you can't directly attack the king, then look for unprotected pieces, all the pieces, or pawns, but they all seem to be protected. But we have 2 attackers and only 1 defender, the queen here. So now we have to be careful. This could get a little tricky because if we capture here and the queen captures and we capture, then this rook will pick us off here. They'll take our rook. So if queen captures, queen captures on d4, their queen will capture. If our rook recaptures, then they will capture our rook with check. So perhaps first we should capture with our queen this rook here. So if we do that, we want to make sure that there aren't any surprise checks that will affect our game. So, if their queen goes here, that would be a check. But then we could drop back and capture. So most likely they will recapture. So we capture their rook on b1 with our queen. Their queen recaptures. Then we capture. And if they capture, we get their knight in the end here. All right. And then we get this knight. So they'll check us, and then they could pick this pawn off. So it looks like we have to go here. But that kind of activates our king. If they fork this pawn and our king, well, we could move up here. And if they pick this pawn or this pawn off, we could grab this one. And our extra bishop should help us win. All right, 1430 rated. We're halfway through. On to the next one. Oh, we just had a capture. And now, what can white do? So let's look for those checks. Now, something that's very dangerous. Now, how I mentioned when a king is checked, there are 3 options. Block the attacker, capture the attacker, or run with the king. But there's an exception. So if we move our knight here to f6, this would be a double discovered check. And when 2 pieces check a king at the same time, the only thing that you can do is run with the king, because you can't capture or block both these checking pieces at the same time. So you always want to look at these double discovered checks if they're available, because they're very forcing. So, if we move the knight to f6, the king is really limited on what it can do. If it goes here, we can capture the knight with mate. If the king goes the other way, our queen can mate up here. So this definitely looks to be the way to go. Knight to f6, and then we just capture the knight here, delivering a mate. All right, I hope you found that one. On to the 7th problem. So what was this? A capture? So let's look for checks. Okay. Well, it looks like we have multiple possibilities with the queen check, but rook can block. So then after that, do we have a follow-up? We could even check from down here on c5, as well as jumping up on the 7th rank. So, and material. Are we behind? We have 2 extra pawns, but they have an extra knight, so we're behind the equivalent of 1 pawn. So what do we want to do here? Well, we probably have to get our rook. Maybe our rook's involved. It usually takes more than just one piece to have a successful attack. All right. So, if we can't deliver a mate, maybe we can harass the king and maybe fork the king and the knight somehow. So, what can we do? One option is queen to c7. If they block with the rook, we could capture. Queen captures. Then we capture this pawn, forking the king and the knight. Oh, but the knight could just drop up here and prevent that. So, all right, so this is going to be a tricky one, it looks like. Another option, do we just capture this rook, but then the other rook will recapture, and then we lose control of the open D file. So I don't know. I'm still thinking, well, there's this option. Check here on c5. The king can run, though. Oh, and then we can capture. That may be the way to go. But, if we go here and check, what if the rook blocks? We capture, the queen blocks. Then, what do? We check this way. So check on c5. The rook blocks. Do we check up here on this 7th rank? This one's a little tricky. So if they block, we capture, queen captures. Then we might have this option here. Oh, and then we could fork and take this. Okay, so that looks to be the way to go. All right, so we're doing that. Then we capture. Now, if the knight blocks, we grab the other rook over here. Okay, so that is the best way forward, it appears. So we just go there. And then we're attacking the pawn. That one was tricky, 1590 rated, so I hope you had good luck on that one. We'll try the final 3 problems here, so let's try and keep moving along. All right, a capture. Let's look for the checks on the king. We have these 2 passed pawns. We have the bishop pair. The rook is cutting down through the center, kind of cutting off the king. So if we check here, then what? We check. The king could move up. Or we have this knight, or excuse me, this bishop lined up on the knights. What if we push this pawn forward, attacking the king? The knight would no longer be protected. So I think that would work. Well, no, he can't go here. So because the bishop is cutting off the king moving on the light squares. So that might be the move. So a very important strategy in tactics is look for unprotected pieces. We have a knight up here and a bishop, but sometimes when they're protected, look for a way to pull the attacker away from the protection of the piece. So pawn to g5. If the king captures, then we just pick off the knight here. Okay, and then we have 6, 7 pawns versus their 3. So we have 4 extra pawns. All right, so that looks to be the way to go. Then we can just pick that off. All right. Okay, well, let's go on to the final 2 problems here. We just had, what was that, a rook pinning this rook. If we capture, queen captures, and there'll be a mate on the back rank. So we need to move immediately here. So let's look for checks. Can't move this rook, but the queen looks to be the only piece that can check. Maybe there's a queen sacrifice. What do you think? So what do we do? How do we follow up if we pick this pawn off? Well, if the king retreats, we deliver a back rank mate. If they capture our queen, well then the other rook can check on the back rank. And if the rook drops back to defend, then we just capture. So here we go. Queen sacrifice and mate. All right, I hope you were able to find that one. Let's move on to the final problem here. Okay, queen jumping up here, attacking our pawn. We don't have many pieces here. Huh. Okay. Well, we have to look for those checks, and we're behind in material, so we need to do something in a hurry. The obvious move is rook to a1, check. The only thing that can be done is to block. Well then, let's say we capture with check. The king will have to run to here. And then looks like we can just deliver a mate. All right, the rooks saved the game. Check, capture, and can either rook do it? No, we don't want to bring this rook up here because then the pawn can be captured. So we have to use the other rook here. All right, well, that was 1430. I hope you did okay in these tactics and, well, just mostly tactical problems. Sometimes they have a few more strategic problems, but it's mostly tactics. Remember, daily tactics study is one of the quickest ways to improve your game. So feel free to leave comments as always. Let me know if there's any types of videos you would like to see in the future. Like and subscribe if you haven't already to support the channel. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.